انتوا بتسمعونا على STR The Sandy Times Radio. ثقافة، ميوزك وأكثر.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Pump Fiction by the Sandy Times, the only podcast where we get irrationally emotional about footwear and tell ourselves it counts as journalism. I'm Dara Morgan, chief editor at the Sandy Times, and today we're exploring less a shoe, more a piece of portable sculpture, the kind that stalked runways, stormed red carpets, checked into museums, and ghosted retail. Meet the Alexander McQueen Armadillo. Shout out to Lady Gaga for making them a household fever dream. And let's dive in. Before the Armadillo stormed into legend, there was Lee Alexander McQueen, so-called enfant terrible of the fashion world. He didn't just stage shows, he staged feelings. He loved a theme with teeth, from history to romance to sexuality to death. Even at his gentlest, he was provocative. Even at his most shocking, he was precise. You felt the cutter's hand in every seam, the storyteller's hand in every scene. That appetite for contradiction peaked with Spring-Summer 2010, Plato's Atlantis, the last fully realized collection McQueen presented before his death in February 2010. Inspired by Darwin, the climate crisis, and the question, what if we evolved back into the sea, the show unfurled like a nature documentary directed by a poet. Looks began in earthy animal prints and marched toward aqueous blues as though the models were mid-mutation. McQueen wasn't shy about the stakes either. There is no way back for me now. I am going to take you on journeys you never dreamed were possible. Boy, he did. And here's a fun bit of trivia that's actually not so trivial. This was the first big runway show ever to be live-streamed. Nick Knight's show studio handled the tag, Gaga tweeted out the link, and the internet promptly collapsed under the weight of all that anticipation. Total crash. If you were there, you definitely remember everyone yelling, "Is it working?" at their laptops. Enter the Armadillo. Approximately 30 centimeters from top to sole, balanced on a 9-inch spike heel, and curved like the armored head of some tenderly terrifying marine creature. On paper, it sounds like a dare. On the runway, it looked like the leg had grown a claw. A prosthetic fantasy that turned the foot on point, yet hid the entire ankle to toe inside a convex shell. It was grotesque and beautiful in the same breath. The making of it, that's where Georgina Goodman steps into frame. McQueen sketched the alien, Goodman engineered the landing. Each boot was hand-carved from wood in Italy. Because the lining and upper were lasted separately, the shoe needed 4 zips, 2 for the lining, 2 for the outer shell, just to let a mortal foot enter. And inside was built a tiny bulge above the toes, so the wearer could actually lever the thing off the ground. The details tied straight back to McQueen's whole eco-fantasy. Some pairs came in turquoise shagreen, others were robed in python or black leather plated with metal. And then there was the finale, Neptune's Daughter, a full suit of opalescent sequins, paired with matching armadillos that hid the runway lights and shot them back like sunlight skipping over waves. Were they made for selling? Absolutely not. These were showpieces, not stock-keeping units. 21 pairs were produced for the collection. The vast majority stayed in archives or migrated to museums. And yet, fashion is never so pure that it resists a loyal client with a very persuasive credit card. A few pairs escaped into private hands, which is how celebrities ended up treating them as both shoes and plot twists. Let's talk wearability. Producer Sam Gansbury tried walking in the Armadillos the night before the show and promptly filed a complaint with Gravity. If they fall, McQueen said allegedly. And the line has lived many lives since, as menace, as manifesto, as surprisingly accurate stage direction. Several star models like Natasha Poly or Sasha Pivovarova refused to walk. No one fell. Miraculous? Maybe. Either way, the effect was undeniable. Fashion critic Sarah Mauer set grotesque shoes that looked like the armored heads of a fantastical breed of a sea monster, and meant it as a both warning and a compliment. The shoes hollowed the idea of pretty and filled it back up with something more interesting: evolution as theater, femininity as a weaponized grace. They bent bodies into new silhouettes and forced a new gait, turning models into technicians. They also made the runway look like terrain, not a place to stroll, but a place to survive. And if all that reads a little cruel, well, point shoes are cruel. Corsets are cruel. Fashion has always been part costume, part calibration device. McQueen simply refused to pretend otherwise. He showed the strings and then twanged them for sound. The Armadillo's second life after the show belongs to the collectors, the committed, and Lady Gaga. Daphne Guinness wore them first on a red carpet in late 2009 and again in a Vogue Italia shoot. Callis turned up in a nude pair. Demi Moore posed in them for a glossy cover. And Gaga, who closed the circle by premiering Bad Romance at the show, went on to star in the video wearing the Neptune's Daughter look, boots and all. She arrived at the 2010 VMAs in Python armadillos, declaring them one of her all-time favorite looks. In 2015, the McQueen house teamed with Christie's to produce 3 new pairs for UNICEF Nepal earthquake relief. Expected to raise 5 figures, they hold in nearly $300,000 combined. Taylor Kinney bought the trio and gifted them to Gaga. Isn't it bad romance indeed? Exactly. Museums did what museums do when culture breaks open a new shape. The Met Savage Beauty in 2011 made the armadillo a pilgrimage. The Victoria and Albert Museum followed suit in 2015. MoMA asked the eternal question, is fashion modern? And pointed to a shoe that looked like the answer. No, and that's the point. Meanwhile, the archive kept its trophies. The resale market hissed a number. At one point, turquoise shagreen fetched around $80,000, and the brand itself, still very much alive under Sarah Burton's steady alchemy, let the armadillo's DNA coil into new shapes. In the Spring-Summer 2024 pre-collection, curved heels and sculpted shells translated the monster into something everyday adjacent. The mutation continues. So the question is, why this belongs in a museum and not your closet? Well, let's be honest. Your closet is a nice person. It's supportive. It doesn't deserve to wake up to a 12-inch counterfactual that requires 4 zips and a pep talk. The armadillo is museum grade not because it's unwearable, but because its primary task isn't wear, it's meaning. It makes arguments with materials. Argument 1. Fantasy is a critical resource. The world needs fantasy, not reality, McQueen insisted, and he wasn't proposing escapism so much as alternate readings. In 2009, fresh off a financial crisis and heading into a climate reckoning, he built a myth in which humanity adapts, even if it looks monstrous doing so. Argument 2. Fashion is an art form because it changes what a body can say. Put a ballerina on point and you get grace with an asterisk. Put a model in an armadillo and you get alien majesty that refuses to be cute. Argument 3. Commerce has its place, but so does the show-only piece that everyone can see and almost no one can own. McQueen's democracy was brutal and brilliant. The runway and the stream were free. The artifact was scarce. Did the armadillo change shoes? Yes, in the way earthquakes change furniture. After 2009, extreme heels weren't just back, they were mimicking themselves onto sidewalks and runways alike. Even when designers weren't copying the shape, they were copying the energy. And yet, the armadillo also did the opposite. It made space for flats to feel radical again. When heights become hysterical, horizontals start to look like rebels. What the armadillo asks and keeps asking is simple. What if fashion didn't just dress the body, but reimagined it? What if a shoe were a plot device? What if beauty grew gills? McQueen answered by building a future in which the human form negotiates with catastrophe and chooses metamorphosis over nostalgia. It's not a cheerful answer. It is, however, breathtaking. So yes, the armadillo belongs to runways and red carpets and vitrines. Your wardrobe can keep its sanity, the museum can keep the myth. And every time the brand riffs the curve into a wearable echo, you can feel the original humming underneath, a fossil that's still alive. Thanks for listening to Pump Fiction. Next week, tune in for the story of Miu Miu Ballerinas, the season finale where we descend from pump height to the earth, meaning flats, because they are iconic and deserve no less attention. Until then, keep strutting, even if you are barefoot.